Oh, Billy, it's great to be here with you again in Kappa in County Limerick.
You're very welcome, John.
And
all your viewers and all your listeners.
Yeah, well, it's marvellous, and a very big Cape fortune to our very good friends, your very good friend John Robinson, Doros Cahill, Chris Fogarty in America. We want to thank.
And they're very important. They've been great supporters of us.
They have.
John, I've been doing this for 72 years and never got any place.
Yes.
You know, and it's so important what we're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
Can I show this?
Yeah, please. We'll start with this.
This is what we have to start with. And there can be no doubt about this. This is the sovereign Dáil government. If you read the proclamation, which John has done, and everybody reads it, we only had a provisional government in 1916. We had to have a sovereign government. Because if you haven't sovereignty, you can become a slave, and you don't own anything, and corporations control you, and the Crown of England controlled us. We were only slaves, and what they did to us. So that's what the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood wanted, was to achieve that. And that was, and you can see it on it. Look, it's all there, 21st of January 9, and it was the 1918 32 county election called by Britain during the war, the 14th of December 1918. On the 28th of December, IRB Sinn Féin won 73 seats out of the 105. The Unionists got 25. The Democratic Unionists, as they called themselves, there were 6 nationalists and 1 independent. That's the mandate we were given to found and fund the state. And King George V and his government they called it an illegal assembly. It was all 32 counties, all down the Irish Sea with Britain to our United States and Canada in the Atlantic Ocean. That's our territory. And they wouldn't recognise that. They still don't recognise us today. It's still the conflict going back to 1155.
That's right.
And that's what those people gave their lives for. And we have done a good few interviews, John, haven't we?
We have. Actually, the current opinion of all of the...
Look at that. That's what's important.
It is,
and look at the people on it. The sovereign seal and era has to be honest. That's the sovereign Dáil government. And you'll see what happened, what caused the Civil War. That's what we're doing today.
Yes.
And it's very formal to do that. That's yours.
But a lot of viewers have sent in comments, Billy, particularly in the last 12 months of interviews with you, that they find that the whole, one lady said to me there that the whole history of this country is upside down because of what you have said and what has been proved to be absolutely accurate. So both our politicians and our state bodies have actually been working on something that's not correct.
And that's true.
That's the problem.
And that is the problem. And they won't correct that.
Yes.
In Europe, you have to have sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
And we have it from that election of 1918. That's the sovereign Dáil.
Yes.
Dáil has never sat in Leinster House. And what's important, this is what caused all the trouble. We had a sovereign government by the will and wish of all the people of the 32 counties.
Yes.
All our everything, it was up and running. Michael Collins, we'll call it just one, he was Minister for Finance.
Yes.
On the 6th of December, this is what we want to show you, and we had this the other day. Articles of Agreement are signed on the 6th of December 1921. Britain would not allow that sovereign Dáil government. And King George V and his government, they sent over the Cairo Gang to execute and annihilate all members of sovereign Dáil government, all IRB, all judges, and our defence forces.
To wipe us out, in other words.
Well, annihilate us, as they had done in 1155, the very same, and as they have done to other countries, but we won't go into other countries. And they had the plenipotentiaries then came over, and this is what they're supposed to have done. I mean, they got De Valera because of with Atkinson's and those, Ballingarry, and he was illegitimate, and he wasn't executed in 1916. And he was sent to London by the Atkinsons and by the Free State government, and to negotiate. And when he arrived there, Churchill and the rest of them, they didn't want to have anything to do with him. They wanted to have Michael Collins, because they knew they had him under control, and they told him, you weren't born in America.
So they blackmailed him.
They did.
They were blackmailing him.
They blackmailed the man.
I see.
And they said that you were born on board ship, and you could be executed. And they wanted the number one man here, which was Michael Collins. And he had to send him over. Collins didn't want to go because he was a rough, tough fighting man. He didn't want to have anything to do going to number 10 and whining and dining and all that. And that's what they did. And then they told him, Mr. Collins, you have an illegitimate child. And we're going to make this known. We are going to impose our partition of Ireland and the treaty. And that's how they did it. Dirty tricks. And they sent over, that's Lloyd George, and very important, Lloyd George said to Collins, you know, the immediate and terrible war. This is Lloyd George telling, if you don't implement the treaty.
Yes.
And Collins came back here, and Collins said, and these are, look, this is the Articles of Agreement, which you can get all this in Billy McWhirter. Michael Collins said that the Articles of Agreement signed on December the 6th, 1921. Remember, that was 1918, that election, 1919. You have to be able to compare the two to know what caused the Civil War. And he said, the signed on December the 6th, 1921, was a lease for 2 years only, and would revert back to the sovereign Dáil Éireann government, democratically elected in the 1918 32 county election by the will and wishes of all the sovereign Irish people, and ratified on the 21st of the 1st, 1919, in the Mansion House, Dublin, and GHQ Vaughan's Hotel. And this is what the Articles of Agreement are signed on the 6th of December, and it says Ireland should have the same constitution status as the community of nations known as the British Empire, as the Dominion of Canada, the Commonwealth of Australia, the Dominion of New Zealand, and the Union of South Africa, with a parliament having powers to make laws for the peace, order and good government of Ireland. There is no right-minded person in this world that can say that the partition of Ireland was for peace, order and good. It was a tragedy, and it shouldn't have happened. It split Ireland, England, Scotland and Wales. We were under that union of Ireland, England, Scotland and Wales, but Britain they wanted to expand their empire, and they didn't have the food. And we were sacrificed. Ireland was sacrificed. That's 1155, when Pope Adrian IV, the only English Pope, gave Hibernia, which is heir to Henry II, to expand his empire, and donation of Ireland and the people, between 6 and 8 million people, and up to Henry VIII, all they did was get rid of all those people. They imposed the Ulster,
and plantation as well.
The plantation of
Ulster,
and
yes.
they're our ancestors now today, and people should know that. And that's why we don't speak Irish all the time, and people wonder why this doesn't happen. Because that's what's happened. England imposed that. We were down to 550,000 people, and the rest were all imposed here on us. And this is what's caused the conflict, and it's never been sorted out. Now, it came then to what we're talking about. This is the commemoration, and Maurice Manning. Maurice Manning, I got John to look up, is the chairman of the centenary commemorations. That's what Maurice Manning is.
Present day.
And on the 28th of June, they had him on RTE radio, and it was shocking. He was asked, well, what's the commemoration for the 100 years of, this is your talk about the Civil War, and nobody, RTE, who is the national broadcaster and responsibility, and they had David McCullough on, and we saw the news, and we saw opposite the four courts, showing us what happened. But they never told us what happened. And what happened was, there's your sovereign Dáil government. We've already said that Lloyd George said to Collins and De Valera and those, it'll be immediate and terrible war if you don't accept the treaty.
Yes.
And that was it. So what they did was, they had a so-called illegal election on, I think it was the 11th of May. Now, these are off the top of my head because I don't have the Vaughan's Hotel papers. I gave them all to the University of Limerick, and they don't seem to know what they did with them, and no one's allowed to read them.
Who's surprised?
But the election was the 16th of June, 1922. That's important to see that. 21st of January, 1919, and here we are up to June the 22nd. The 16th of June, 1922. And there was the 19th of May before the 11th of it. This was going on all this time with the plenipotentiaries and everything else. And what happened was the Republican people who had signed up, and we read it in that book.
We did, yes.
About, they took an oath of allegiance on the 21st of January 1919 to the Sovereign Republic of Eire, the Sovereign Dáil government, the Sovereign Dáil courts, the War of Independence as a defence force, and be accountable to the sovereign people, because the people became sovereign. And how could they take an oath of allegiance then to go into an illegal Free State government to partition Ireland and to give their allegiance to the Crown of England? I mean, on this you're talking about the 16th of June 1922. After those people, so there was a complete standoff, and I mean I knew Ernie O'Malley and all those things from Burzwood, Lodge up in Mayo and that, because we used to go up there in our holidays. My mother's island is beside it, and I mean I knew all those people there, and they were in the Republicans were in the four courts, and they weren't going to hand over the four courts for a free state.
Now, when you say the Republicans were in the four courts, that was the IRB, was it, at that stage?
They were IRB,
Sinn Féin took possession of the four courts.
They took possession of the four. That was the Republicans took possession of the four courts.
So, a very important point that a number of listeners, viewers, asked me to ask you just to re-verify. The British soldiers at that time,
the Crown
Forces, they changed uniform. Was that it?
This is what's important.
Right.
And you have the letter there from Collins.
I have, yes.
And this is what Collins, now you remember now, we have a free state,
yes,
and we have the Sovereign Dáil government, and we have a free state government that was supposed to be elected, but the IRB and the Republicans, they wouldn't vote for it. They never sat in Leinster House. Leinster House was bought by the Free State and Britain,
yes,
to partition Ireland, and you'll see it there and that, and
yes,
to pay for Britain's war debts and war pensions. It's on that. That's what they set it up for.
So they put a war debt at that time around the necks of the Irish people.
That's what they did. We had to pay for that war debt.
For that.
It's there in black and white.
Yes, it's there.
War debts and it's just up the but the point of the whole issue is, Collins, you had the Free State then.
Yes.
And I heard of one person that RTE had on and said they should have complied with the election. It was an illegal election. The only election was what we just called there.
The 1918 32 county called by the British government.
That was called.
Yes.
You have the 1916 proclamation.
Yes.
A provisional government. They had to have a sovereign government, so they had to call, and it was Britain called it, and we won it. 73 votes.
The IRB Sinn Féin won that election.
Yes. And that's the mandate we were given to found the state. It's the mandate down the Irish Sea with Britain. All our territories, 32 countries.
A very important point again. Another viewer came in on this, and thanks, Billy, for that. Our territory belongs to us,
the people,
but we don't have it.
We do have it.
Because it's down the Irish Sea.
Well, that's the border between us. That
Yes.
line that you see on Billy Book that I claim every year on
And
the 21st of January.
the southwest into
And
the
it
Atlantic.
goes right down into the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes.
Right to the United States and Canada. And it goes right to United States because we brought sovereignty to the United States and Canada. That's how
right.
we can go
Yes.
into it, and that's why it's so important. We have the largest territory in Europe. And Britain are patrolling the whole thing at the moment for themselves.
That's the point our viewers wanted to make. How is it then that the British government, we'll call it for want of a better word, are patrolling our territory because it is ours,
With the Free State, with the blessing of the Free State provisional government,
which is the present government,
which is claiming that, but it's out, it's gone, because Michael Collins said you're talking about here, the 6th of December 1921, right?
Yes.
You're talking about 1922 today, where we're talking about
Yes.
what attack on the Four Courts,
Yes.
and you put he said 2 years.
Yes.
That's the start of the Civil War. When Britain, and they said, Michael Collins, look, the Free State didn't have the guns, they didn't have the explosives to blow down, and Churchill was adamant that they would blow down, attack the Republicans in the Four Courts.
Okay.
And Collins wrote a letter to him saying,
Yes.
Mr. Churchill,
Correct.
I don't have, the
Yes.
Free State doesn't have the ammunition or the guns to destroy the Four Courts.
Yes.
And what did he do? Churchill, he sent in the ammunition, those guns and that. And then the Free State soldiers didn't have the experience to use the guns. They didn't know how to use them. He sent in the Crown Forces. They changed their uniform into the Free State uniform and destroyed the Four Courts.
Right.
That's the facts of it. And I have that. That's in the Vaughan's Hotel, and if you can get it from the University of Limerick, get it from them.
Yes.
And you'll see all Ernie O'Malley, I knew Bulmer Hobson, I knew all these people.
Yes.
Joe McGrath, all these people. I knew these people who were in there.
No, that's
And
the part then that's airbrushed out.
That's Airbrushed out.
Yes.
And you saw that on the news on the 28th.
Excuse me. Yes.
And you saw it on the day before on Nationwide, and they brought in these people. They never mentioned that.
They never mentioned it. No.
They airbrushed it out.
Sure, that's
and
the
Morris Manny.
That's the central part of the whole
Morris
thing.
Manny, who is.
I know he's chairman of the
Centenary Commission.
Centenary, yes.
He never mentioned that. He must do a comprehensive account. Our sovereign Irish people are entitled to know
Of course
what caused
the
the Civil War
Yes.
in Ireland and what caused the Free State government.
But you see, what angers me and angers people across the world, Irish people across the world, is the fact that all of this central argument, history, in fact, blood, sweat and tears spilled. It's evident, it's there, it's recorded, and yet they won't mention it.
And what's so important,
Billy, what are they running
the most
from?
important thing for people, there's your passport. Look, the sovereign seal in there.
Yes.
It has to have it on it.
I know,
there,
yes,
right?
yes, it's there, yes.
And if you hadn't that, where can you go?
You can't.
And that's the 21st of January.
But Billy,
that's not the Free State government.
A question that was, again,
yes.
I had about 50 questions from viewers, but these are the central ones. And thank you again, viewers, for all of your queries and your interest. One question, and I suppose I've asked this time and time again as well, why are all of those facts airbrushed out of proper commentary, supposedly professional commentary, by the people on RTE, who we pay their wages, by the way, with high taxation, but I think that's about to change by the latest news, at long last. And they get these appointments to, like Mr. Manning and his colleagues, and they still can't deal with the facts. What is wrong, and why is that happening, Billy?
Because they got away with it for so long. Their salaries and their pensions and their expenses are huge. And Fianna Fáil and Fianna Gael came out of that Civil War. They're two Civil War parties.
Yes, they are.
And they're still holding it under the Crown of England. I mean, this is what we're up against today. We cannot sit in Europe unless we have a sovereign government, which we have. You can't have a passport unless you have a sovereign government. You can't own your land unless you have sovereignty.
No.
And here are still 100 years on, and they still won't allow. They're still trying to keep it going. They don't want anyone to know. I thought when the 28th of June came,
Yes.
that for the attack, the Crown Forces attack on the forecourts, that all this would come out. I thought Maurice Manning would give a comprehensive account of what happened. He would have gone back to the conflict with Ireland and England.
But he should have.
Because you're never going to have peace in Ireland until this is done.
But you see, until that's known by everybody, understood by everybody. But I'm holding here a letter, and thank you.
That's what you have, please, John.
Yeah.
Read that letter, which we've been talking about here.
Yes. No, you've covered it very, very well, Billy. Very comprehensively. Folks, this is a letter that is the facsimile copy of the original letter in storage, and it was sent by Michael Collins to Mr. Churchill, Winston Churchill, Prime Minister at that time, on the 29th of June,
now
1922. They are, yes.
Because here they are trying to blow down the forecourts,
yes.
and they don't have the guns, the ammunition to do it. Or they don't have the men, the soldiers aren't able to use the guns.
Yes.
And here they are, they're stuck. And that's crucial.
Yes.
But why aren't Irish people allowed to know that information?
But that should be taught in every
All
kindergarten
right, we
school.
can't go back and refight it with Britain.
No.
All we want to move on and become... anyway, you have to read that letter.
I will read it now.
Crucial.
This is actually from the Irish Provisional Government. Now, you have got to be patient with me because some of the lettering, because of time, it's 100 years old, this particular letter, but it's from Michael Collins to Prime Minister Winston Churchill. It starts, Mr. Churchill, we are hampered by the continued lack of material. We were promised 200 rounds of high explosive at 2 a.m. this morning, but they were not available. This ammunition was again promised for 5:30 and again not available. The promise was renewed for 8:30 with like results. The effect of this is to create great lack of confidence of our side, amounting to grave suspicion. Essential that action be taken immediately. Otherwise, I can't read this, and nobody could read it. Otherwise, it will. The actual effort will be impossible. Signed, Michael Collins, on the 29th of June, 1922.
You see, there's the facts of the matter.
Why
is that concealed?
And as you can see,
by RTE. Why didn't RTE read that out to the people?
There is actually a record number on this as well.
There is?
From the official files. So this is a genuine letter. This should have been read out.
And then also, look,
yeah.
Does Maurice Manning believe that the people aren't capable of getting this information?
Well, I don't know. It just seems that there are people on these committees and in RTE, and probably lecturers as well, or historians, that just take these things out of a book without proper researching them, researching the facts and balancing the facts with reality and fact of what happened. Well, and it seems to be total devoid of that.
But John, you and I are now asking Maurice Manning and RTE to do a comprehensive account of what happened in Ireland.
Yes.
Go back and start in 1155 with Pope Adrian.
It's all there.
And go bring it right up.
Yes.
Henry VIII, because Britain doesn't have sovereignty, it's royalty they have.
Yes.
Because Henry VIII, he turned the monarchy into a corporation.
Yes.
To plunder the world. That's what he did.
Well, he did it.
And what happened to all those estates and everything, people should know the truth about what happened.
Yes. Yes.
We don't want another 100 years of propaganda, lies, deception and fraud, savagery and brutality, and that peace, order, and good government of
That
Ireland.
is bull.
We want the truth out to the people because
Sure.
our people are sovereign. And the same with
Exactly.
Britain. We were a part of England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. That was it. But
Correct.
Ireland was sacrificed because
Yes.
they had the food to feed the Crown Forces and the Royal Navy. How can we ever be friends with Britain, England,
Well,
Ireland?
I'll tell you what, I want to correct something. They opened the famine Memorial Museum. Now, I disagree vehemently with that. It's not a famine.
There was
It's
never
a
famine.
genocide. It was humanitarian crimes that were perpetrated by the British government at that time on the Irish people. And the evidence is there. So it's not a famine museum.
No,
That's total hogwash.
The famine, it was a potato failure, is what we had.
But all the other
We had
foods were
plenty of
growing.
England,
Yes.
and we had all the vegetables, fish. Look at the fish we had to
Yes.
see. Look at all the beef, mutton, lamb, poultry. All that. All we had was, but the misfortunate Irish people, they were starved because the
Yes.
potatoes failed, and that's all they had to eat. This is the good government for Ireland.
Oh, sure, that's bull.
We
Pardon
don't
my
want
language.
that anymore.
No,
We want the
no.
truth and knowledge, and the same with the Vatican. I can tell you.
Yes.
You know, when I think of all the Irish clergy, nuns and priests and brothers and monks that went worldwide for the
Yeah.
Vatican, they should have the decency now. They did it for the American Indians
They
to
did.
apologise to them, and he's going there, I think, in the next week or so.
Yes.
Why? When he came here, I asked him to address that. The 1155.
Because
Handing a whole between 6 and 8 million people over for genocide. That is shocking. We don't
is.
want any more of that.
No, but the point is, Billy, that has to be recognised. That has to be understood. That it was not a famine. That it was genocide. It was crimes against the people perpetrated by a foreign government. Look, you
John,
can call
and
it
you
what you
know,
want, but that's a fact.
If that's not corrected today,
Yes.
it can keep going on. We do not want another 100 years.
No.
There is no 6 counties now. There is no free state government because the 100 years is up. And all we want is RTE must give a true and honest account of what happened on the 28th of June 1922.
Yes,
And a proper account, a comprehensive account.
I agree.
And they have all the money, they have all the people at their fingertips, and yet they couldn't mention it. They couldn't even mention the sovereign Donorian
But
government.
you see, there is a problem with a lack of understanding, a lack of research. The RTE and other stations, they have all of the
John,
people, lecturers, men
I
and women
gave
out there.
all the Vaughan's Hotel
You did,
papers
yes.
to the University of Limerick. They
Yes.
were all there.
Mhm.
RT didn't want to know.
Of course they did.
I rang RT on the 29th after this was shown.
That's right.
I was sent from post to pillar.
They didn't know
I-
how to handle you.
They
Because
wouldn't
what...
let me speak to the newsroom,
Yep.
to David McCullough,
Yes.
who was and he's a historian. They wouldn't let me speak to anybody in there. All I could do was to make a comment about and they said, that's going no place, that comment that you're making. And that's, you can't ring RTE.
No, you can't. Well, you see, the thing is that you must remember RTE are a closed shop. They're clandestine. They haven't... controlled clandestine operation. Everyone in this country pays their taxes in this country. No matter whether you're a pensioner or whether you're A, B or C. You go out and you buy your fuel, you pay tax. You buy your loaf of bread, you're paying tax. So you are a taxpayer in this country. And then the government are giving millions every year to this organisation that are afraid to impart the proper, truthful, historical knowledge. That's all you want. That's all the people of Ireland want.
Between 70 million Irish
Well, here-
people worldwide, and they're not allowed to know what happened to them.
Here, that's very serious. That's a very serious observation that has been sidetracked and needs to be looked at very carefully. Now, a lot of students around the country in third level, and thanks to you, Billy, are asking very pertinent questions now about 1155, Pope Adrian, Henry II. It all started from there. The plantation in Ulster.
Ulster and the plantation of Munster.
And look
These are
at
our
the mess
ancestors,
there is in
people
Northern
today.
Ireland. Yes.
Whether we like it or don't like
Yes.
it, they were imposed on us by
Of course they
Britain.
were, yes.
And we're not allowed to know anything about it.
You see, this is where I hate saying this in a parallel situation. That is like saying the Holocaust in Germany never took place, and Hitler didn't start any of
And
this.
it's not he's saying that
That's
it's
what
Norseman
they're
saying that sovereign Dáil government that those people gave their lives for.
Yes.
And there's Michael Collins. Look, he carried 8 strings. It never happened.
No. That's exactly it.
The very
That's the
same. That's what
parallel.
you're saying.
That's
And
the
look, he
parallel.
carried 8 strings IV Irish Volunteers.
Yes.
Which is the sovereign seal, and you see it on everything on your
Yes.
passport. I showed it to you, and we're not allowed to know any of that information.
Yeah.
But with the help of God now, and look, we don't want. All we want is our people, the welfare, the rights and welfare of our
Of
people.
course, yes.
That's what we need.
Well, we need it now. We need it now with
We're
high
in trouble
inflation.
now with
We are in very serious trouble worldwide.
we are.
You know.
And people, I hear from people that have families trying to rear families, John.
Crazy.
And for the state, for a free state.
Yeah.
The free state is look, it's no good. It's null and void.
Yes.
And its time is gone.
Yes.
And they should come out and put their hands up and tell the truth about what's happening. And that's all we're asking. And then you know where you are with people.
Yes.
You know what you're paying for.
You do. Yes. But we don't know.
And there's Maurice Manning, in my opinion, has been dishonest with the Irish people. He's been dishonest with the European people and the American people. RTE, which is the National Broadcasting Authority, are being dishonest with the Irish people, with the European people, and the American people, who, without those people, we would have nothing. And what's saving us today is all that money coming in from these companies who want to trade in Europe.
Right. It's the corporation tax that's keeping this country going.
Corporation taxes.
Yes.
And we know what corporation
we're very
taxes are
grateful
under
for
control.
it. Yes.
There's no problem with it. Without that today, we'd be lost.
Yes.
But they should tell the truth. And we have a sovereign government in Europe. When they find out that our own Free State provisional government that was imposed by the Crown of England, King George V and his government, is no longer, it's gone. And that our own, they won't recognise the sovereign government here, which is a 32 county mandated by the will and wish of all the people of the 32 county. That's all we're asking.
Yes.
And we have no problem with the unions or anybody else.
We don't know. They're one of it. They're our own
we're all the
Irish
same
people.
We've all the same DNA and everything.
Yes,
and we should
exactly.
be moving along and trying to get the old world back. And as for the, we don't want to live in a world without God. The IRB are not a religious organisation, but they believe in God and they respect His planet Earth and our civilization.
Yes.
And we should be respecting each other.
Well, I'll tell you something. With the impact of climate change, I think people are turning to the greater power again and saying, we made a mess of this. Now we've got to really put it in the hands of somebody else.
We can do it.
We have. Billy, thank you so much indeed. A pleasure talking to you.
But only for you. That would have gone out there.
Look, I'm honoured. I'm honoured. And that's it from the What Matters programme here with Billy Maguire in Cavan, County Limerick. I hope you stay well. Stay tuned. Many more informative, if I can use the pun, explosive material coming your way. And of course, it would be Misha that would be the instigator of it. But with this man here beside us, we are very lucky and blessed in this country to have somebody that has devoted more than 70 years.
72
years of his life.
When my father came home, was sent.
Yes.
When Pope Pius XII, he
Yes.
sent over the papal nuncio.
Yes.
That I would keep that alive. And I was only 7.
Well, I'll tell you something.
And I said I would.
You've done a mighty job.
But I haven't. But
You have. Go to the market or get slaughtered. Brilliant, Billy. Fantastic.
You happy?
Excellent piece.
Well, I hope you get on in America, and I hope you get out there.
Well, I tell Chris if he pays my airfare, I'll come over and have a chat with him. Oh, that's lovely.
And you're able to